Welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about the big announcement on student loans that Joe Biden made. No, I'm not referring to the 10K or the 20K in loan forgiveness, even though that's what everybody's talking about. There was a second piece of that announcement that was even bigger that most of the media is completely ignoring, about 99% of it, and it is massive in terms of basically close to free education. Okay, so we're going to dive into that today with these income-driven repayment plans, what Joe Biden's new plan is on these. Before I do, of course, we're always trying to grow the subscriber base, so make sure to hit subscribe, share this with your friends. It helps us, it helps you, it helps them. You'll be notified when new stuff comes out, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's dive right into it, right? So this big announcement with student loans. 10K loan forgiveness, whatever. People, up in arms. Some people love it, whatever. The bigger deal, and this has not passed through everything yet, but it's what Joe Biden announced in terms of income-driven repayment plans. Okay, those of you that are in the camp that we should have free undergrad college education, are going to like this because it's a step closer to that. Those of you that don't like that, obviously, you're not going to like this. Okay. First and foremost, I want to touch on what income-driven repayment plans are, so that way, those of you that aren't familiar with these, you'll know what these are. And this is why it's always like, oh, well, we had loan forgiveness. Like, we need loan forgiveness. That's what Biden and the administration always says. We actually have a form of loan forgiveness. It's called income-driven repayment plans. So I'm going to go through with you how these plans work, because a lot of people are not familiar with them. And then I'm going to go through some examples of what's going to happen with this new IDR plan. Okay, and the little tiny amount that people are actually going to be paying on their student loans. So this happens, but it doesn't matter. Let's just say I own $80,000 in student loans, $153,000 in student loans, $300,000 in student loans. It doesn't matter how much I owe on these plans. Okay, my payment is always based as a percentage of my income. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example in this. Let's just say I finished my undergrad. I have $153,000 in student loans. Some of you might be scratching your head saying, how in the heck does somebody have that much in student loans? They do. Okay. So let's just say it's $153,000 in student loans. Let's just say I graduate. Average undergrad makes about $48,000 a year in salary. So let's just say that that's my income. Okay. My starting payment on these is $241 a month. So they say that your payments are 10% of your income. Okay, but that's only partially true. Okay, it's 10% of adjusted gross income on the plans that are there right now. So adjusted gross income plus they take out the poverty line. Okay, so right now, like if I'm single, the poverty line is $13,590. And then what the government does is they gross that up by 125% for these plans. They deduct that out of that salary. So I don't end up actually paying 10% of my income. If I make $48,000 a year, I actually end up paying about $241 a month. That's how the current loan plans work. Okay, now what happens on these is that they're a negative amortization loan. Those of you that are familiar with the mortgage crisis, you'll know what these are. But on these, like my payment's $241. That's not even enough to cover the interest on a $153,000 loan. The interest is about $800 to $900 a month. So the way these currently work is that $800 or that $600, the $500, $600 difference that I'm not paying gets added on to my loan balance. So these loans continue to grow, and then after 20 years, they call them loan forgiveness because loans are forgiven. Okay, so what ends up happening though in that 20th year is that the federal government considers it taxable income. So whatever that dollar amount grows to, I have to pay taxes on it. Okay, so just high level again, my payments on these income-driven repayment plans are a percentage of my income. So it has nothing to do with how much I owe. The balance continues to grow because I'm not even paying the interest. At the end of the 20th year, my loans are forgiven, but I owe a tax on it. That's the way these things currently work right now. Okay, so going back to my example, $153,000 in loans, $48,000 in salary. Okay, my starting payment would be $241 a month. Let's just say over the next 20 years, my wages go up an average of 3% per year. That's important because, again, my payment is based as a percentage of my income, right? So if my wages were going up, my payment would slowly go up. But if I look over 20 years, I would pay about $80,000 in monthly payments. So I owed $153,000 when I started, but I only paid $80,000. Now, the way that current income driven repayment plans work, my loan balance would just keep soaring. So I then owe about $277,000, which if I'm in the 35% tax bracket, which that would probably push me into that between state and federal taxes, I would owe about $97,000 on that. So when I look at how much I paid every month, and then I also look at the taxes owed, I would end up having to pay about $177,000 in overall for my student loans. And so I had a loan amount of $153 when I graduated, ended up paying $177. Not much interest there, but at least the person had to pay it back. Okay. This is going to change majorly if this income driven repayment plan goes through. Okay. So first of all, instead of 10% of the adjusted gross income minus the 125% of the poverty line, Joe Biden's plan drops it to 5% of somebody's income. Okay? But also, I said before, they can deduct the poverty line, 125% of that. He's upping that to 225%. So basically what that means is that if I make, let me back up. The poverty line right now is $13,590. Based on this new deduction, I can deduct $30,577 from my salary. And then that remaining amount is only hit at 5% instead of 10%. So what that means, my monthly payment on the same $48,000 on the current plans would be $241. It would drop to about $73 a month. Okay, so let that sink in. So Joe Biden is proposing two changes on this. That the poverty line deduction goes from 125% to 225%, and that it's 10% of that number, not 5% for your monthly payment. So in my example, again, I owed $153,000. My starting payment in the current income driven payment plans would be $241 a month. This new one would drop to $73 a month. So now if I inflate that over the 20 years, so my income's growing and all this type of stuff, I would end up only paying $23,000. So in the old ones, every month, you add that all up, I would owe about $80,000. In the new one, I would pay $23,000. Now, I touched on the first two changes, 225% of the poverty line and 10% down to 5%. There's a third change. And the third change is that the balance doesn't grow. And this has repercussions in two places. But I'll touch on this first one. Because all that interest that I'm not paying, it doesn't get added onto the loan balance anymore. So the $153,000 that I owe will stay flat. So when that's forgiven, that same tax, instead of it being $97,000, my tax would be about $53,000. So because of those three changes, again, the poverty line deduction from 125% to 225%, going 10% of that number down to 5%. That's the monthly payment. And then no longer accruing interest on the loans. My overall amount that I'd have to pay would go from about $177,000 down to $77,000. So I literally take out a $153,000 loan and I would owe $77,000. And then there's chatter on top of that they're going to do away with the tax when it's forgiven. If they do that, my payments would literally be $23,000 for $153,000 a loan. Again, I could take out $80,000 in loans. My monthly payments would still add up, or would still start off at $73 a month, or $23,000 over the life of the loan. I could take out $500,000. Now, and my payments are still the same. Now, we've already seen what has happened, and I've said this multiple times in other videos. One of the big reasons why the tuition costs are going through the moon the last 10 or 15 years is because that's when these programs started really taking hold, and a lot of people are using them. There's something like 10 million people using these plans now. This is going to drive tuition prices even higher. Okay? So those of you that do want to pay and work through it and try to get scholarships, those scholarships might not even cover anything because the tuition costs are going to go up. Okay? Now, I mentioned that getting rid of that tax, I mentioned that the accrued interest underneath Biden's new plan would no longer exist. You would always owe the most is what you borrowed, okay? I explain this for people going through loan forgiveness. But what happens if people are actually paying off their loans? This is a massive benefit to them, okay? So let's just say I owed $153,000 and my payments were $72 a month. My interest is $892 every month. So all I have to do is pay $73. And then each month, whatever I don't pay gets forgiven. The government just wipes it out. So now I can turn around and just dump a bunch of money as a prepayment and start paying off my loans and chipping away at it. But the interest that I always pay is like $72 a month. That interest rate's like 0.5%. So some of you guys will be like, yeah, that's fine because the interest rate should be 0% anyways. Other people are going to be like, well, wait a second. Like, even if I want to pay off my loans, like, nobody's paying interest on these. And you are going to see the big picture is that, one, if we're not collecting interest on the student loans, or barely any interest, that's one. And two, people that are going for loan forgiveness are paying basically pennies on the dollar what they owe. Where's the money coming from in the long run? How is this program going to keep feeding itself, the student loan program? Kind of sounds like the problem with Social Security and Medicare. Where are they going to get the money for it? I don't know. Let's print some, right? Let's print some. Oh, wait, yeah. Inflation, that little thing. It doesn't matter, right? So anyways, some of you guys will see this and see how big of a problem this can become. Okay, so again, I'm going to summarize that because I know there's a lot of numbers, and especially if you're new to these plans and you don't know how they work, it's a lot of numbers flying around, okay? Joe Biden's proposal that was announced at the same time they announced loan forgiveness, and everybody kind of glossed over because everybody's pissed off about 10K or 20K. It's like, in my opinion, if this thing goes through, it's much bigger than that loan forgiveness, okay? 10% of income is what they base your monthly payments on. That's going down to 5%. But it's an amount based on your adjusted gross income and then a subtraction for the poverty line. That subtraction for the poverty line is going up from 125% of it to 225%. The end result is that people's monthly payments are going to drop drastically on this new proposal. Not only that, but at the end, these things are taxed. And the third thing that he wanted to change was that there's no more interest deferral on these. So it always stays flat on how much you owe. Therefore, that tax at the end is also going to be a lot smaller for people. So that's the big thing with the big announcement that basically mainstream media, whatever media you're watching, is probably not even looking at. So make sure that you share this with your friends. Say, this is what's being proposed. We'll see if it actually goes through or not. But I wanted to touch on that because it's a massive deal that no one's talking about. If you liked the video, subscribe. We'll see you next time.